ITU Presents. Today we are joined by the distinguished guest, Zach Shy, who has most recently spent time with the NBA, the National Basketball Association. He was filming in the quarantine bubble in Florida during the season and during the playoffs and the finals. And he was involved in some new technology that was being utilized. Zach's background, he's a filmmaker. He's worked in various roles in production. He's directed a film. He's shot films. He's a very talented individual. And the NBA was very lucky to have him covering this year because he worked on some very dynamic things that you're about to hear about. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Zach. Zach, thank you for being here.
All right, thanks for having me.
So please take us through your experience a little bit, because none of us outside of the bubble, because you were quarantined like everybody else, right?
I was, yeah. I was quarantined. I was there for 3 months, getting tested every single day. There was a lot of standards and procedures that we had to go through from beginning to end. And it was, it wasn't a literal bubble, but we were totally locked down and isolated kind of all together. And it was a very interesting experience, to say the least.
Well, in honor of you being in the bubble and covering the NBA, I am wearing a Los Angeles jersey here. The team that ended up winning the finals was the Los Angeles Lakers. This is the counterpart for the WNBA. Yeah. So in honor of you being here, I'm wearing a basketball uniform here. So welcome, Zach. I would love for you to take us through a little bit of what you did, because you know that the title of this is Emerging Technology, Sports Broadcasting Using 360 Degrees in the New Normal.
Right.
And so that's something that really is quite different. So please tell us about it.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I'd like, if we can, I'll just start with the slides here and just tell you a little bit about 4D Replay and what we do. We like to call ourselves a frontier technology company, which our main motto is that we're not afraid of failure. We like to just kind of come up with new ideas and new ways to capture not just sports, but just capture interesting moments that are happening. That's kind of our motto, is creating experience. And we're always trying new things, new ways to either, whether it's to move the camera or just manipulate the image, is kind of what we do. And I have a little video here that gives you a little more information about the company and kind of shows you what our setup is, what the cameras can do, and what our replays look like.
Wonderful.
So yeah, that's kind of a little taste of what we do. Most scenarios that we try to set up, we try to do a full 360. Sometimes it's limited based on the venue, like the arena. Sometimes we're not able to actually get that full 360, which means we just can't mount cameras physically in a certain spot. So we might only have
Sure.
170 degrees of rotation or 180. It all varies, and it's all dependent on the venue. So
It looks like it's also upon the dependent on the sport as well, right? The type of coverage that you're doing.
correct. Yeah. A lot of it, like with our placement, this slide was our setup at the NBA bubble. We were in the arena. They had trusses actually going around. I want to say it was 270 degrees that we covered around the court, kind of like left side around and then back to the right side. We didn't have the full 360, but we had 120 cameras there. 60 pointed at one half of the court and 60 pointed at the other half of the court, which if this next slide is just, so this is something that I would get prior to going to a job. This was our setup for the bubble, and the green lines represent one half of the court, the red the other half, and so there's 60 cameras pointing at each half of the court. And what we do as operators, actually for this setup, we had two operators, myself and another team member. We were at a computer I don't know if you saw in the first video, there was a little shot of the guy sitting at the computer. That's basically
Yes.
what I do when I'm operating the cameras, is just manipulating the software and finding the in points and out points of the events that happen, and then picking our template, which tells our cameras how much they should zoom, how fast the rotation should be, whether it should be slow-mo or like live action, real time. And that's, so sorry, I got off track, but going back to the bubble, we had two guys operating, one guy operating one half of the court and one guy operating the other half, so that we didn't miss any of the action. If it was,
I know that you and I talked beforehand and you wanted me to be a little interactive in this discussion.
yeah, go ahead.
And so ask you a question here. When you're covering, one person's covering 60 cameras,
Yeah,
that's a lot of cameras to be covering at one time. So how are you picking out of those 60 cameras what you have the video? Because my assumption, like almost like in the movie Matrix, right, when Keanu Reeves jumps up in the air,
yeah,
right, when or not Keanu, they have a couple of scenes where they wrap around
right.
when that, but they're also, that's a $200 million movie, right? So this is not a $200 million setup.
Yeah, no, it's the same thing though. They for that movie they did the same exact thing that we do. The magic behind our setup is our ability to do it so fast. Like I was telling you before, like say a guy does a slam dunk. At the time of the slam dunk, I would put my endpoint, and from the time it happened to the time that I can actually spit out a replay to whoever the broadcast is, like I deliver it. For the bubble, we were delivering our footage to ESPN and TNT, and from the time the event happens to the time that they get our footage is about 10 seconds, which that's kind of our main selling point. We do it super fast, and I mean, honestly, it's just the magic of the software. And that's when you say 60 cameras to control. I'm technically not, I mean, I am controlling all 60 cameras, but that's what our templates are for. Our templates, we set prior, and we know like, all right, so template one we'll use if there's a slam dunk, because it zooms in on the goal and it rotates the full 270 or whatever, and then pulls back out. So we know.
So you know ahead of time. You know ahead of time what the cameras are covering. So you've got this whole section is covering the slam dunk, right?
Right.
And so,
So
and just so everybody here, it just the advantage here is I've covered a lot of live sports, so but not covered it the way that you've covered it. This is way beyond in terms of technology now. So the traditional broadcaster that you're talking about, like the ESPN, the major sports broadcaster, the TNT, they're doing the live game, right? So they have their own cameras that are locked off, just shooting, covering normally, right? And then you guys have all of this hyper advanced technique going to give that augmented experience, or that virtual experience in the stadium as though you were right there, right?
that's exactly right. Yeah. And we have to
Okay.
set up a lot of cameras to do it, but it's well worth it. It gives the viewers sometimes a view they've never seen before. And it's pretty special. It's fun to do, to be honest.
It's
It's
pretty spectacular. Yeah, take us through some more. This is amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, this like I said, this is something I would get like prior to going to a job, so I know exactly where the cameras need to be laid out, where they need to be pointed, and how many we're going to need. It helps me know like what lenses to use, honestly. Knowing how many cameras and the spacing I know. So all right, if we have 20 cameras within 40 feet, they all need to have a 35 millimeter lens or something like that. It helps me figure out a plan like that. And so this
A quick
is,
question, Zach. You have a background. I know you also have a background in cinema, right? So you have a background in film. In terms of understanding, from a storytelling perspective, that understanding of the camera lens and the depth and the story that you're telling, take me through that, because I think the one thing is that there's an art to it. It's not just a technical thing.
yeah, 100%. There's an art to it, and that actually goes back more to our templates. Like I can tell them like. All right, so the producers will ask us like, can we get this shot tighter or wider, and I'll actually have to go in and manipulate the template. But the doing that is kind of the art form, like what we do beforehand, setting up the templates in the first place, knowing. I guess what I'm like, my background as a filmmaker helped me know like how it should be captured, honestly, and knowing if the shot is a little too tight or maybe it moves a little too fast, things like that, different variables that I think my background it's helped me a lot with doing this type of work.
Fascinating.
Moving forward, this was just protocol and safety in the bubble. So when I first got there, the first day we got tested, and then I had to quarantine like in my, not just the hotel, but in my room for 3 days. I couldn't leave my actual room, and they would bring, you could order room service and they would bring and leave it outside your door and knock on the door and then take off running basically. But they, after that 3-day quarantine, we were tested every single day, and we couldn't leave. We couldn't leave the hotel except to go to the arena where the games were at. And they had shuttles for all of us broadcast people that were at the hotel to take us back and forth. We couldn't, we weren't allowed to like Uber and do stuff like that, obviously. So it was, it was a long time to be locked down, to be honest. And in a lot of ways, that was the hardest part. But I think everyone that was there, we were kind of all in it together, and it made it a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's almost like a family for life, right? And you and the basketball players, everybody was quarantined for 3 months, right?
We
So
were.
the entire NBA family, crew, everybody.
Everybody,
Yeah,
yeah. And
broadcasters.
yeah, towards the end, I think they let the players, like friends and family, start to come, but they had to do the same thing. They had to get tested and quarantined as soon as they got there. And yeah, I think it was during I guess it was when the playoffs started. There were maybe 50 or 60 people that were fans, but they were like family of the players that would come in for the games. And the way they had it set up were they had different levels, like a green zone and a yellow zone. And the green zone was like players, coaches, family, basically like the court level people. And then the yellow zone was more broadcast people, camera operators, producers, and we actually were not physically allowed to go downstairs into the green zone while any green person was there, which created some challenges. We have to calibrate our cameras quite often to make sure they're level, to make sure the frame's perfect, that it's on a certain point, and that was a challenge because we had to wait. So after a game, we would want to go calibrate, and we would have to wait until every green person got out. Sometimes it might take 3 or 4 hours that we would have to wait before we could just walk down the steps to go get on the court and put our tripod so that we could actually calibrate.
Because they're doing their post game interviews and
Exactly,
other
yeah.
media, probably, right?
That's I think 95% of the time that's what we were waiting on. We're like just other media stuff and for them to clear out, which was challenging. But
it's well, you made it. So you went through that, and then what? Take us through the next slide here.
Okay. So yeah, this is just more about 4D. This is another system that we offer. It's called VAR, which it allows the referee, like a referee or official, to be able like to come over and manipulate the footage in real time. So if I'll show you the video in a second, but if there's like a close call and say somebody challenges it, the ref can run straight to us and say, I want to see it from this angle at this amount of zoom. Like they can zoom right in on whatever's happening. And the fact that we have a 360-degree coverage gives us every angle possible. And I'll show you this video.
It allows for it stops certain athletes from cheating. So
yeah.
let me ask you a question in terms. So the VAR, can you explain to the group what VAR stands for?
I was worried you were going to ask that because I don't actually know what the acronym stands for.
Because in my mind, I'm thinking virtual augmented reality, but I don't know if that's even remotely close.
Yeah.
But the main point is that you're able to get in and see something that's really detailed.
Right.
That otherwise the normal camera angle would never let you do this.
Right.
Basically.
And not so much that it won't let you do that, just maybe the operator missed it. Like maybe they were focused on something else. You know, that's the beauty of our thing, is that we literally capture everything. There are no open spaces with a 360-degree view. That's which for this application, it works really well. The VAR system is really
I guess you're going to show us a head kick. Show us a head kick here. Is that what
Taekwondo? I don't know much about Taekwondo and how they score it, but I'll let you guys decide. But the VAR that they use, it's super cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
the detail is quite amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. This VAR, I really like it. I think it's very applicable in across all sports. Can be used for any of them. I mean, if like a play at the plate or somebody stepping out of bounds or anything like that, we could be able to capture it, and they can look at it instantly. It's pretty unique.
I look at some of the implications here in terms of the technology. You almost, in a way, you can capture fans too, right? So in terms of
Yeah.
for security measures and other things like that, the ability in the world in which we live, I think application in terms of this technology. Are you noticing that there's demand outside of this live sports world for this yet, or is that
There is actually. We just got a contract with I don't I guess I don't want to say it's not a music video, but it's like a live performance for a Korean band, BTS, who is super popular.
yep?
Uh, yeah, I think we're setting up for a couple of their concerts this year. And I'm honestly, I think it will be the 40 live that we use for that, so that people, I have a slide on that I'll
Yeah.
show you. It's just more interactive, which is, I kind of think the way that sports viewing might be moving, to just a more, I mean, obviously from home, with fans not being able to go to the game, we're able to give another look and another experience, I guess, if you will.
And a more dynamic experience for the user, right?
Right, right. And yeah, this goes back more kind of into our operating. I don't know if I was talking with you about this beforehand or not, or if I was talking about it here, but we're trying to remote operate. Well, we do. I guess our operation is technically remote. We're not physically operating the cameras, but we're always on site. And what we're moving towards is being able to operate remotely. So I would be able to operate here in San Francisco a basketball game in New York. And we're
Okay.
currently in the process of running a fiber line from New York to our office in San Francisco, just to make it faster, basically, so we don't have to rely on Wi-Fi. Technically, we are able to remote operate any of our systems right now from anywhere, basically. If we have one of our 4DCs, which is a 4DC is our laptop that we use to actually control the cameras. But so like if I had one of those at home, I can operate any of our setups anywhere just by remotely logging in. And we've also now moved to gimbals that we can remote operate as well. So for example, we're set up in
Tell,
Toronto.
tell people here, tell people here a little bit what a gimbal is. I know what a gimbal is because I have a lot of
So,
production
yeah,
experience, but a lot of folks on here might not know what it.
a gimbal, it stabilizes the camera, and in our case, it's the camera's not moving, so it's not stabilizing it, but it's keeping it balanced, and we're able to move the camera remotely using the software, as opposed to physically getting up there and turning the camera and panning and tilting and all that. Which, so we're set up at Chase Center where the Warriors play, and to calibrate all of those cameras, we have to go around with ladders and climb up and physically move the camera. But with all of our new setups that we're doing, we have these gimbals that we can pan, tilt, and they have presets too. So, for example, in Toronto, at one venue, we're doing basketball, the NBA, and NHL. We're doing the Toronto Raptors and the Toronto Maple Leafs. But so the basketball court is much smaller than the hockey rink. So for basketball, all of our cameras will be pointed, let's say, at the goals. And for hockey, they need to be pointed at the goals, but they need to move.
Gotcha.
And sometimes
Yeah.
in that arena specifically, there's a basketball game one night, a hockey game the next night. So it's not physically possible to just get up there and recalibrate everything within maybe an 18-hour period before the next game, which is where these gimbals come in, and they're very helpful because now we can just, button 1 is for
You
basketball
can move them.
and button 2 is for hockey, and they'll move and point where they're supposed to point.
So from what you're describing, it sounds like you have the technical setup. There's a question, by the way, if people have questions, I'm going to read them when they're in the chat box, so feel free to ask them there. Obviously, at the end, you can also ask questions, but I'm going to ask a couple of questions that are in the chat box. But in terms of what you're talking about, so you're back in the San Francisco office. You have a fiber line from New York that's going to be coming in. I know that you're covering the Brooklyn Nets, which is a really, really there's a lot of expectation from that team.
Yeah, there is.
So that's going to be a big coverage for you guys. You're able to physically do that from San Francisco with maybe a technician in Brooklyn, New York,
Correct.
who can help you adjust if there is a broken camera or something like that, right?
Correct. Yeah, because sometimes there's variables that we don't. We try to foresee everything, but sometimes a cable just might go bad, or somebody might bump a camera. Maybe a mount came loose, or things like that, which we do need someone on site to actually physically fix.
Or a basketball, hockey puck, some sort of equipment hits the camera too, probably.
Our setup in Orlando in the bubble, we had 2 cameras get hit by basketballs, like a guy throwing a ball at the end of the quarter or whatever, just smashed a camera, and we just had to replace
So
it.
I'm going to ask you some questions that are in the chat box here.
Yeah.
One of the questions is, I'm curious about the frames per second these cameras are able to catch. And are there in-place environmental factors that might affect the quality of the footage captured?
Absolutely. We usually film everything at 60 frames a second, just so that we are able to slow it down a little bit if we have to. And there are tons of variables that affect the image quality. For example, to actually changing the iris, like the f-stop on our cameras, all has to be done through the software. You have to go into each camera in the software and change like the f-stop from a 2.4 to a 4.8 if it gets brighter, which
you want to explain to the group about changing irises? What if you're explain to the group, because not everybody is as familiar with cameras. So if you're changing the f-stop, changing the irises.
Changing the exposure. So with less light, say you're shooting at nighttime, you want your f-stop as low as possible. That's letting in more light.
A lot of light.
It opens up. During the day, you want a higher f-stop. There's a lot more light coming in, so you want your iris to close. And that has a lot to do with everything as far as the image is concerned. Your depth of field, sometimes if there's not a lot of light and we have to shoot at a really low f-stop, our depth of field might only be a few inches or a foot, which makes it hard if the action's happening, anywhere outside of that. Like I was starting to say, I did the Australian Open, and Rod Laver Arena. It's sometimes it's open, sometimes it's closed, sometimes in the middle of the day.
The tennis tournament for everybody here.
Yeah, sorry.
The Australian Open is a tennis tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the arena sometimes
big Grand Slam tennis tournament.
Yeah, it was a huge tournament. It's really cool. We were thinking we were going to go back there this year, but I think with COVID and everything, we're not going to travel to Australia. But the roof of the arena would open and close. So sometimes, or maybe a big cloud would come over and block the sun for 5 seconds. So during those 5 seconds, I would have to physically go in the software and change the f-stop. And then after the cloud goes away, I got to go back in and change it again, which is a bit of a challenge, just based on the speed. And tennis was super fast moving. Points being scored all the time. And the producers that I were working with, they would want, I mean, they wanted it instantly, you know, and if that's, I had to be quick about actually changing the f-stop and stuff, because if I didn't, I mean, maybe the image was unusable. It might be too dark or too bright. So it was a bit of a challenge, but it was a lot
Sure.
of fun.
There's another question in here, which is, what if calibration is needed? So what if you have to calibrate during the use, if the remote control is being used? In other words, how do you calibrate, I guess, while it's in use?
We can't. While the event is going on,
Yeah.
we can't. And that's, we always try to do our calibration, like say a game ended, we'll do it immediately after the game so that we know it's good at the start of the next game. If anything goes wrong, we are able, like, so if a camera gets hit and falls off the rails or whatever, we're able in the software to delete that camera. So it's no longer giving us an image. We
Gotcha.
basically just get rid of it, and then we'll go fix it after the game and recalibrate.
Gotcha. And you have so many cameras going, you
That,
have
yeah,
almost a little bit of redundancy, maybe, right?
correct. Yeah. Yeah. And we kind of have to sometimes, because that will happen. We'll have issues come up. You know, just sometimes a camera might die, or like I said, a cable might go bad, or somebody might hit it or something. So we have to be able to just get rid of it and delete it out of the system.
There's another question in here, and I appreciate you taking time to answer these questions as
Yeah,
you're going, because I know
great.
you do have a presentation, but I want to make sure that people are getting some of these questions answered as you're going. One was, hi, I'd like to know if all these 100 plus cameras need to be carried from stadium to stadium before the bubble situation. How are the logistics managed?
Yeah, that is a big challenge. Yeah, we pack everything and carry it. So for the bubble, we were lucky enough. ESPN provided us shipping, but we had, I think, 32 full-size Pelican cases and maybe 10 or 12 other boxes full of gear that we had to ship. But normally we would have to just carry it on a flight, and we have to get a carnet,
Sure.
which is a whole new thing for me, which is basically that's when we leave the country, or when we leave the country with our equipment, we have to get a carnet to go through customs and basically declare what we have. And a lot of times it's super challenging, even just getting through the airport. For example, I went to Canada a few months ago, and on my way back, it was just me. I was alone, and I had 26 Pelican cases that I had to get, from the van to the plane, and then from the plane back to our office. And that might be the most
Yeah,
challenging
Pelican
thing.
case
Like,
a Pelican case is bigger than this thing right here,
yeah,
the
it's not
one
small.
you're talking
Yeah,
about. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
sure.
so
Yeah,
that's because I remember being stopped by security in Chile, and they thought that they didn't understand what some of the equipment was that I was
right,
carrying, and they thought that I might be a terrorist, because
right.
a lot of this equipment is very weird looking, and
Yeah,
it doesn't look normal.
yeah, and
And
we might
so
have
you're dealing with a lot of
pieces of just like cables
technology.
and stuff. Yeah, it's all.
Mhm.
So we have to answer a lot of questions. Logistically, sometimes it can be a nightmare, but we just do what we can to get the gear there and get it in place. And that's actually our
All right, so let's
company.
take us through some more.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, Zach. I was saying that you could take us through the next part,
Yeah.
but what were you saying?
I was just saying that our company is when I first started a year ago, it was just me and four other people in the office, and now we're up. I want to say there's 13 or 15 people that work in our San Francisco office. Obviously, we have a lot more employees in
Sure.
Korea and Japan, but we're growing, and that's one of our things is finding someone to do those logistics, to help us out, because like me, my role is installation and operation, and I don't necessarily plan like how things are going to get from A to B. I'll tell you how to set them up once they get to B, but getting them from A is not always my thing. But yeah, going forward, this is the 4D Live app, which I think is honestly the future of our company, and it might be just the way that people view sports. I mean, not specifically this, but I think this will be integrated into most sports broadcasts that you'll see in the coming future. And I'll play this video and let you take a look at what 4D Live is.
Want to catch a crucial turn? You can pause, rewind, and replay in slow-mo.
와, 이런 것도 보여요? 대박.
원하는 대로 볼 수 있고. 손가락이 먼저 닿네.
원하는 대로 돌려보고 못 보던 장면까지 5G로 생생하게 보는 이 전지전능한 일상.
So yeah, that's 4D Live. And I think it's super cool. So that gives, so basically like you, Jake, you can operate our cameras, you can manipulate our image, you can pick any, so if we have 120 cameras up, you can pick which one you want to be at and how far you want to zoom in. And I think it's a very unique product. I honestly, it's going to be a part of the way that we watch sports, I think.
And it's an incredible experience. I mean, I almost look at it if you're watching the Academy Awards or something like that, and maybe you're not a sports fan. I think the applications are pretty incredible.
Exactly, especially with the day and age we're living in now with COVID, and you know, people you can't have people together, and but you still want to be there, and this kind of gives you a way.
This is incredible. In terms of is there more that you're going to show us in terms of slides here, Zach?
I actually don't know what's next. Sorry. Yeah, no, that was it. Sorry.
That's what. Yeah, no, I thought we were at this slide. You know, in terms of what you're doing, obviously you had this experience where nobody on this call with you right now, or this video chat with you right now, was in Florida, understood what it was like to be stuck somewhere for 3 months.
Right.
To even the idea of being in your own hotel room for 3 days, you can't even exit your hotel room.
Yeah.
Right. But the interaction that you were doing, you know, I'm here in Los Angeles watching the NBA Finals, watching the LA Lakers, which is my childhood team, right? And because of you, I'm seeing some of the work that you did. And now that you've described what you've been doing, it's incredible, because I know what live broadcasting is normally like, because I used to do it as a reporter. But now as a fan, as a consumer of the content, right, as the user, it's interesting to understand some of the replay that I saw was actually done by your team.
Yeah.
So that to me is quite fascinating.
Yeah, special. To be able to be a part of, I mean, the bubble itself is honestly like a historical event. Being able to be a part of it was very special. I think they said there were 6,000 people maybe altogether that were there, and I mean, including all the teams, all the players, all the staff, all the broadcast, which, I mean, in regards, that's a
food, cleaning crew, right? Yeah, right. Food, cleaning crews, all of that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And
there's a question. There's a question in the chat box, and I think it's regarding the last video that you showed.
Yeah.
Can you modify the view and everything else in live video, or is that somebody manipulating it in recorded
No, it's
for the
live.
4D live?
You do it. Everything is
That's what
live.
I thought.
Yeah, you're getting a live stream, and you can manipulate that however you want, which is awesome. I mean, myself being a sports fan, and like you said, not even sports, you could do it with anything. And like you said, the Oscars or the Grammys or whatever, like, oh, I want to watch this, but I want to zoom in. Wait, I want to move over to this side of the stage. I mean, it's very intuitive.
Maybe we should call Joe Biden. There's about to be a new president inaugurated. You could do the presidential inauguration, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we can make some fast phone calls. Let me see what I can work out there.
All right.
So somebody just wrote, that is crazy, meaning that you can do it live. I agree. That's spectacular, right?
It is.
So right now we can certainly, yeah.
And actually a lot of it, we've had 4D live in the works for a few years now as a company, and we have only been able to do it recently because of 5G. We're very reliant on the faster speeds. And now 5G is kind of rolled out everywhere, so we're releasing the product, and people are liking it. They used it for the World Series this year, and it was a big hit.
Yeah, well, a big hit in terms of my Los Angeles Dodgers also won the World Series. So thank you for helping with that too, Zach.
All right. Yeah.
Let me open this up to, now that you've finished the presentation portion. I know we asked some questions as we were going, and I'm trying to be respectful of your time because I know you're giving up a Saturday night, and you've already given up 3 months of your private life being in the bubble.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a question for Zach here? This is access to somebody who really, was able to do behind the scenes of something that none of us really have access to. I'll ask the question that's in the chat box, but after this question, feel free to jump in. This is one of your questions. Is 4D replay being utilized in movie, TV productions? Have you worked in any? How was that working with, and if so, basically, if so, how was it working with the movie or TV production?
Yeah. Well, since I've been there, we haven't. I think we've done some stuff in the past. And I'm assuming you mean in terms of like narrative, like movie and TV stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't personally, since I've been with the company. I think there is a good application for it in certain movies and TV shows. I think it could be used really well, as another just tool for telling the story, like they did in The Matrix. I mean, it blew everybody's mind when you saw it in The Matrix, and it was the perfect tool for that spot in the story. And I think, I think we could apply it in certain spaces like that. And I would love to be a part of it, given that my background as a filmmaker. I mean, I would love to be back on an actual set doing this, as opposed to sports. And I love sports all the same, but something about a film set, it's a special place.
It seems to me, because if you're on a dolly, you're moving around on a track, right?
Right.
In this sense, you've got everything already preset. If you've locked off your shot, right, as a director, if you've locked off your shot, you could be capturing nature. You could be capturing a nature documentary. You could be capturing an action movie. You could be capturing pretty much anything. Somebody wrote, Christopher Nolan is going to come after you guys soon.
I hope so. I'm ready.
Maybe you can be his cinematographer, right? There we go. And then True, it was amazing. Was just going to rewatch The Matrix this weekend. Yeah, I think that's the closest to what everybody on this conference really can relate to, is that Matrix scene.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that was kind of the
you can now see
this whole thing.
Yeah.
We just took it and made it faster, I guess, able to do it live. I mean, I know nothing about the time it took. I've seen the setup that they did for the Matrix, and it's the same exact thing that we did. But their processing was probably a lot longer. You know, it probably took a lot more time to actually mesh the images together and make it all one shot.
Your thought is also a little bit more, if you look at it, because I've recently taken a look at it, I think what you're doing is actually has a little bit more fluidity, right?
Yeah.
Because I think the technology has improved.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
obviously they had millions upon millions to stitch everything together and to do it.
Yeah.
But you guys are, we can go up, down, sideways, whatever, go in different types of patterns depending on the space that you're in.
And the cameras don't move, it's just the image. That's just the software basically giving us what we want to see. It's the software. So I've been there a year, and I've been learning the software the whole time. But the actual, like, I guess the coding, how it all works is kind of still a mystery to me. Just the meshing all the frames together and getting the rotation and everything. It's pretty special.
Well, on this on this call, we have digital artists, computer scientists, we have business folks, we have software engineers. So I think this gives a lot of opportunity, because what Zach's talking about, all of the jobs that everybody who's in any of these degree programs, you could all go into this field. You would just be doing a different aspect of it.
Absolutely.
And if you wanted to learn something else, the one advantage I think from listening to what you're talking about here today, and the fact that I know you and I've been able to talk with you about production before, is that your ability to understand from a director standpoint, producer standpoint, somebody doing the lighting, somebody doing the camera, you have all these different understandings of what roles are. So even though your role now is very specific, you understand what the other folks are doing.
100%.
With the exception of the people who made the software.
Yeah. Right. But that goes a long way, just in terms of doing a job. Like, you have to talk to the producers, the directors. I mean, so the whole time I'm operating, I have a headset on, and I hear what the announcers are talking about, which is they're telling the story. Even though it's a basketball game, the announcers are still telling a story about what's happening. Like, maybe a guy is injured and they're focusing on his leg or something. So then I know, all right, so if he jumps and comes down weird, I want to give them a replay of that. And that's just me helping tell the story as well. But knowing the roles and knowing how to understand kind of what they're looking for goes a long way, because in that case, I do have experience with directing and producing and all that. And it gives me kind of a one up, because I can give them what they want before they even ask for it, just because I've been paying attention to what story is being told.
Yep. Yeah, it is story. Everything is always story in terms of content creation.
Yeah.
There's a comment in the chat that says, this is cool. Thanks for sharing, Zach. I found it a little similar as GoPro Max's video. Would that be something would that be some similar software application?
I'm not sure. Actually, I don't know about GoPro Max. Our main competitor has been Intel. They do right now. They have the NFL is like Intel. Their Intel True View is what they call it.
Yeah, they started in the Winter Olympics with Korea, right? Is that where they started their stuff? Is that I think that's where they.
I know that we keep trying to get NFL stuff and we can't because they're in there. But the thing, so that is actually another like way that we sell ourselves is our footprint. Intel, for example, when they come and set up, they have to bring 6 trucks, like tractor trailer trucks, full of servers that process all of their images and spit them back out. And it takes them So like I was saying, from the time an event happens to the time we deliver footage is about 10 seconds. For Intel, it's usually around 30 to 40 minutes.
Wow.
And they have to take up a whole parking lot to transcode that footage, basically. Whereas our whole entire system
Gotcha.
is no bigger than, the computer at your home. It's all, our footprint in the actual arena is very small. It's just one little desk. That's why a lot of times we blow people
Now
away.
it's on this thing too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you're making it so that it's on this thing too.
Yeah. And we got we got to Orlando and the guys were asking us, they're like, so where are your trucks at? Where are all your server racks? And we had just, our little computer, and we were like, that's it. And they could not believe it. That's what does all this. It's pretty amazing.
I think it's incredible. Does anybody else have any other questions for Zach while he's here?
But yeah, GoPro Max. I'll have to check that out. I actually
I know
have no idea.
Yeah, I know we've peppered you with a lot of questions, and you've answered them all, so we appreciate that.
Yeah, no,
I'm going to give maybe a 5-second, since we're talking sports, I'm going to give a 5-second count and see if anybody comes up with a question. And if they do, then please ask it. There's one in the box. Is the technology used in augmented reality?
We have not yet. Not to say that it won't be in the future. Because that could be another good application for it. But
Yep,
yeah,
for sure.
At this current time, it's not.
Okay. All right. Any more questions for Zach? Well, Zach Shy, we appreciate you spending time with us today.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you very much for being here with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Zach.
Before you go, everybody turn on your screens. We're going to take a picture here with Zach. So Zach, maybe stop sharing your screen, and we're going to take a photo with you if possible.
Okay.
All right. There we go. All right. Let me just see here. There we go. Hold on a second. I'm trying to take a photo on my side, and maybe we should, let's see here. Angela and Shui, can you turn on your cameras?
I'm sorry, I couldn't. I'm still having the same issue as
Okay.
in the morning.
I turned it on, but it's a little bit blurry. I think there's some technical issue.
No, that's okay. That's better than it being blank.
Okay.
So that's fine. All right. Hold on a second. I'm going to try and do recording here. I don't know if you can record on your end. Bill, are you able to do a screenshot of us? Or Grace?
I think Grace is doing it.
Okay. All right. You ready? So I'm going to do a countdown yet. Hold on a second. Hold on. In my computer. Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. All right. Zach, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
We appreciate you. Thank you for giving up some of your Saturday night to be with us.
No
You
problem.
certainly have enlightened us, and we'll never look at sports broadcasting the same.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys. You guys have a good night. Have a good weekend.